He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
All right, Marlow Show, thanks for joining me. Unbelievably busy day in the news. I've just been a maniac in the lab recording content for you, and I don't even know exactly how we're going to lay out the show, to be honest, as I'm starting to record this first segment, because we got a bunch of stuff in the can. I'm talking to Congressman Comer later. I record a bunch with John Carney. I think we will play that, and there's just a ton in the news. And I'm negotiating whether or not I'll be on Laura Ingraham again tonight. Did I tell you guys? I didn't tell you when I was on Friday. It was really funny. It was amusing. I only got messages from 4 people about my hit, which I guess shows you that I've been doing this a lot. When you get on Primetime Fox at the beginning, then you start hearing from all sorts of different people in your life who see you and they reach out. And I guess I've been doing it a lot lately. So I only heard from my mother, my father, and they know that if I don't hear from them, I assume it didn't go great. So they're kind of are obliged to talk to me. One of my employees or coworkers, and the big guy, President Trump reached out and he said it was a nice job and thank you, which is pretty cool. So it was sort of a funny, eclectic group, but a good group. And yes, I'm bragging, but you know what? You got it. Your life is. You got to enjoy those nice moments like that. So it was nice of him to reach out. He's a very magnanimous guy. He wants other people to succeed. It's one of his best qualities. But we're very busy in the news. I've been down. It's just a wild day of Joe Biden mental decline stuff, which is just, it's getting very irritating to hear because, the book is finally out, the Original Sin book by Jake Tapper and the Axios guy, where they've announced that it was only a small group of people close to Biden who covered up Biden's mental decline. And I was thinking about this and having reflected on it for a while, I don't know, for several years, having written a New York Times bestselling book on breaking Biden. And then the cancer conversation, and I have updates for you on that. I've been on a cancer rabbit hole for the last couple of days, trying to make sure you all have the cutting edge information, which I'll bring to you momentarily. But it's the bigger deal here is not the prostate cancer. It's the aneurysms that Joe Biden had. Joe Biden had 2 aneurysms removed from his brain. He had surgeries, and these are very dramatic parts of breaking Biden. And I'm starting to put out some clips on my Twitter, which is at Alex Marlow. You can get it. But he 2 brain aneurysms in 1988. And it was a really dramatic story when he found it and it was discovered. He went to Walter Reed to get it treated. He had 2 surgeries over the course of many months, and there was a thought that maybe he'd never be able to speak again, and he might not ever be a whole person. It was sort of miraculous that the aneurysms got out of his brain and that he was able to make mostly a full recovery. And the doctor who did the surgeries has vouched on Biden's behalf. I highlighted that chapter in my Twitter feed if you want to check that out. But overall, there's a lot of thought that he could die on the table, that he wouldn't be able to make a full recovery, that there'd be perhaps some sort of part paralysis. And then he went on to be senator and vice president and then president. And we're not talking about that at all. We're just talking about other nonsense. So it's just really interesting. And I won't say it's frustrating because I like to be able to feel like I'm on the cutting edge for you guys, but I feel like you're getting the best information about Biden's health on this show, because maybe even better than his actual doctors, because who knows if they're telling us the truth. So I'm trying to keep you appraised on what I really think is going on. But we're talking about partial paralysis. And then he goes on and lives this long life. Of course, he's going to look like he's deteriorating. There's no cover up. It was not a small group of people. And the whole media trying to scapegoat a few Biden advisors is just, it's too much to take, and it's just not accurate. I will tell you, I got to field a lot of questions from you guys on Biden's cancer. Some of the things that I think are notable. So one of the ones I keep getting is this Gleason score situation. We had a Gleason score of 9. This is a way to track presentation of cancer in the prostate. And it is when you have a high Gleason score, 9 or higher in particular, it shows that you're very high risk, and it shows that the cancer is aggressive, and it's used to predict the likelihood of it spreading. And we know that the cancer's already spread to the bones, but as I noted, not to the lungs or liver, which would make it significantly worse, and the prognosis much less. And but it doesn't prove that there was some sort of a cover up, which is what everyone is trying to infer on X, the Everything app, that to have a Gleason score at this level it suggested there must have been a cover up. The other question I've been getting is at the PSA levels. How could Joe Biden not, at his elevated age, not have the cancer detected much earlier on in PSA levels, which is something that's tested for routinely when you get checkups. But the issue that's missing is that you don't get checkups every second. And as you get older, your PSA tends to go up anyway in a lot of cases. So it's one of these things where in order to assess whether or not it is cancer, you have to do a biopsy of the prostate. And just because you're an 80-year-old guy and you have an elevated PSA level, prostate cancer that presents very late in life does not typically kill you. It progresses much more slowly in a lot of cases. And so just because you have a somewhat high PSA level, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going in there and biopsying it, especially if you're 80 years old. And so there's no necessarily any evidence that's been suggested that there was some massive cover up. I say this with all the caveats that they cover up everything else, the Biden family. So I won't be surprised at all if it proves that there was some sort of a cover up here and they knew this long ago that he had the cancer. I admit it. I'm fully expecting that to happen. But based off of what is being presented now, the people who are reading the tea leaves on X are not going to be able to solve this thing like it's some sort of a CSI mystery, because it's just the nature of his PSA levels elevated a year ago whenever he got his last physical. Who knows? Maybe. But maybe not high enough where you get it biopsied, and certainly not necessarily cause some sort of a national crisis over it. There is a lot more to be determined in that regard if you want to get ultra conspiratorial, and I know many people do. So I don't mean to give news that deflates any sort of your hopes that there's some sort of big conspiracy that's going to be revealed. But you could have a localized prostate cancer that's treated and then was on surveillance, and then it can become metastatic. When prostate cancer presents very late in life, it moves incredibly slowly and might not affect your life at all. And the interesting parallel here is our friend Scott Adams, which I mentioned yesterday, who's in his mid-60s. He said he's been battling prostate cancer for a while. It's spreading much more aggressively, is not responding to treatments. And it's noteworthy how much more serious that is if it presents in your mid-60s versus late 70s, early 80s. It's just not the same disease in the vast majority of cases, even if it's at the metastatic level. So all of the stuff that's been reported them seeing could have happened. It doesn't necessarily affect his fitness. And most apropos here, it doesn't affect his mental fitness, which was always terrible. The media should have never allowed for him to become president to begin with, probably not vice president. What's most relevant is the dementia and the brain aneurysm stuff that no one is talking about, and no one is answering that question, how much that has had an effect on his life. His doctor said he's as sharp as a tack. Dr. Castle, who I quote in Breaking Biden and who I quote on my X page today, if you want to check that out, that's the main thing for me. And I really think that we're missing a little bit here because we're so quick to want to say, well, they're always lying. They're lying about this. And he wasn't fit because of the prostate cancer. We do not know that. We're much better off slamming the media, slamming the Jake Tappers, and focusing on those aneurysms that clearly cause dementia. And the entire left, not just some small cadre around Biden, was very tolerant of this. So just because you're seeing Gleason scores, there's no way to tell that it's just not a great argument. It's only one aspect of how you measure how aggressive a cancer is. And it's not like he was getting checked every other day for cancer. So there you go. So we're the other things to track: visceral involvement, PSA, visceral involvement meaning did it spread into lungs, liver, et cetera. Anyway, but keep sending me your questions and I will answer them on the show because I'm getting a lot of them and I really like it. So again, I might eat these words because he might be dead in the end of the summer. Who knows? But from what we're being told, it's very likely he lives another 5 years and dies for something else. So that's it. And based off of what we are being told, which again, take it with a grain of salt, but it's just it's the real deal. But you're seeing a lot of hysterical people online demand that, we subpoena doctors to get health records. And it's just like, you can't do that stuff. So I know it's just performance art to try to get clicks online, but it's not, you can't do that. When the president discloses their health information, that is a courtesy to us, the American people. It's not an obligation for office. I think it's nice. I like the idea of a president being open about his health issues, but you're not allowed to do that. Theoretically, there are HIPAA laws. You're not allowed to be a doctor who just spills the beans on all your patients. So just demanding that we just confiscate the knowledge of some sort about people's medical conditions is not going to happen. And I feel like we're better off focusing on other scandals of the day. And there are many. There are many, many, many to deal with. So that was top of mind today. And I want to bring that up is that Biden was deteriorating. He was of decreased mental function. He did have major physical damage, but not necessarily the stuff that's being focused on at the moment. But it's compelling. So I will continue to give you all the updates at Breitbart News and on the Marlow Show as well. Another one that let's turn to James Comey. You guys may have noticed that James Comey had tweeted out a picture of him with seashells that spelled 8647, which clearly means eliminate the 47th president of the United States. That was a topic last time I was on Ingram on Friday. So if you guys are interested in that's out there for you. I think I've linked that up on my X page as well, if that gets you interested. Comey went out trying to do some damage control. He's also got a book to sell. I think it's a novel. He's trying to walk it back a little bit, but check out what this jerk did. Let me play this for you.
You are back in the middle of a political firestorm.
Yeah, for walking on the beach with my wife. So I don't know how we ended up here. It never occurred to me that it was any kind of controversial thing, but
He's how he throws his wife under the bus. He walk on the beach with his wife. He's going to continue to do that. But we don't care that you walk on the beach. We care that you tweeted out a code for assassination that's clearly a dog whistle to assassinate a president that's already had multiple assassination attempts on his life. So big deal. Very important to note that is what it is. It's not about him walking on the beach and him playing it very cool on MSNBC. I don't think that mitigates what he did. It just shows that he's on his back foot. He's just not that bright of a guy, and he thinks he's slippery, but he's not very slippery. I've written about this quite a bit, and it's about he's not as good at the sort of retail strategy as a lot of top people in Washington. A lot of his moves are very clumsy, and he keeps getting himself into trouble. This is the latest thing. That this is just not a good way to get yourself off the hook, is to throw your wife under the bus and say, we were mad that you walked on the beach. No, we were mad that you put out a code for killing the president, dude. Here we go.
But that's the time we live in.
So take me back to the walk on the beach.
We were walking on the beach. We went to the beach to prepare for this week, which was the launch of my book, and to think about the book and to prepare to answer questions about it. And we were walking back towards the road, and we saw in the sand someone had arranged shells with numbers. And Patrice, my wife, said, why would someone put an address in the sand? And I said, I don't know. And we stood over it, and I said, I think it's some kind of like political message. And she said, 86, when I was a server, she did a lot of work in restaurants, meant to remove an item from the menu when you ran out of ingredients. And I said, well, to me, as a kid, it always meant to leave a place, to ditch a place. I said, that's really clever. So then she said, you should take a picture of that. And I did. And I posted it on my Instagram account and thought nothing more of it until I heard through her that people were saying it was some sort of a call for assassination, which is crazy. But I took it down. Even if I think it's crazy, I don't want to be associated with violence of any kind.
Okay, that's good. Hey, look, he said he disavows violence. Hey, look, that's nice. That's something. But the rest of that, you guys buying his take on this? It was kind of my wife's fault. She kind of compelled me to do it. And we were just walking on the beach, and I'm a really nice guy. We have a romantic time. It was a great date. It was a great thing. And I can't believe this happened to us, just having so much fun. And I had no idea, as the FBI director, that was code for eliminate. I had no idea. Yeah, it was like a restaurant thing, right? Like, that's what it's about. It really reminds you of the Hillary Clinton when wiping the servers, when she said like with a rag or with a cloth, whatever was the phraseology, where she's lying, but she thinks she's going to get away with it, so she does it anyway. So, class act, that Comey. But he's playing it so cool. It was kind of fun. He's just acting, but he should be investigated, absolutely. And he knew exactly what he was doing. So they're really lying. All right, other stuff that Trump's up to. Russia and Ukraine are immediately going to begin negotiations towards a ceasefire, according to President Trump, which is of course, a massive accomplishment, and I hope that's true. What's interesting here, and I talked to Francis Martel, our world editor at Breitbart, about this, is Russia's the one being intransigent at this point because Trump, I guess, humiliated Zelensky over and over again in the last couple of months, and now Zelensky is playing ball. And Russia, I think now is sort of wants to play a long game because maybe they feel like whatever brokered peace is not going to be good enough for them. They're going to get something, but so they look like they won. That's my prediction. But maybe they feel like they can keep the war going on at sort of a simmer and then they could fare better in the next administration. Maybe that's their thought because Trump is a tough hombre to negotiate with. And that's sort of our working theory at Breitbart. So now it's actually Putin is the one who doesn't want to let up on the war. It sounds like Zelensky maybe wants to be done, but I'll believe it when I see it because it just is such a moving target. And until recently, I would have told you for sure that Zelensky would like to keep the war going because if it stops, then the gravy train runs out and he's potentially not going to be president. And who knows what the rest of his life looks like after that. But it seems like it is it's a Putin now who's causing problems. So we'll see. Keep an eye on that. But if Trump brings peace to that region, automatic Nobel Prize, in my view. He won't get it, but he should. And another legacy cementing endeavor. So let's see if that happens. Keeping you posted day to day. A couple of plugs for stuff at Breitbart. That's good. Brooke Rollins did a showcase with our own Matt Boyle. You can see video of that at Breitbart News talking about unfair trade practices and how Trump's righting those wrongs. She's the agriculture secretary. Very high energy, definitely someone who's got ambitions for higher office for sure. Definitely potential chief of staff, which would make her most powerful woman in the world if she did that, or perhaps cabinet secretary. So always interesting to see what she's got to say. Some other guests at the event as well, talking all sorts of important Washington-centric stuff. So we're doing these sort of things. If you would like to do something with us, aloha@alexmarlow.com. I know we have a very DC-centric audience. So if you guys want to hit me up, we can do an event. We love to do them. And I'll plug our Breitbart Fight Club show today. I talked to John Binder about all things immigration. In particular, Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, charged with assault and impeding law enforcement officials at an ICE detention center. This was unbelievable. I think this occurred Friday, and I think it was too late for me to get it into the show, which was very lamentable because just absolutely wild stuff. If you guys missed the video, Congressman McIver showed up at this detention facility in Newark, New Jersey. Essentially, there was a riot that was going on, and she assaulted ICE detention officers there. And it was described as she was body slamming them. I think it may have been a suplex, might have been, or a pile driver might have been the move she was attempting to do. But Alina Habba said no one's above the law, and now she is potentially going to go to jail, and she should. It's clearly assault. She runs into officers and physically hopes to do them harm. She physically assaults them. It is on camera. I don't know why she would think that's acceptable. There's no scenario on earth where that would be acceptable for anyone unless you're getting treated with special privileges. So I talked to John Binder about this on the Fight Club show, and I was getting his take on the immigration agenda. Overall, he's very positive, but he did throw something out that I really wanted to bring up on the show with regards to the big, beautiful bill, is that he thinks there should be more ICE detention centers in the bill. And he thinks that remittances should be taxed at a higher rate. He thinks the remittance tax rate is very low. And if you really want to cripple the illegal immigration network, you need to jack up the taxes for remittances. And I love that. That's great spirit. I thought it was a great call by Binder. And so amen to that. So we want those taxes really high. And apparently in the bill, they're on like 5%. I did not know this. So hand up on that. My bad if I got that one. If I was overly enthusiastic on yesterday's show, that number should be much higher. And the big, beautiful bill, people should hold out for that. Trump was asked about Congresswoman McIver at a little press gaggle they did. I love that he does these gaggles because they create some real nice off-the-cuff moments. Biden, of course, with his brain aneurysms and dementia, could never have done this. But Trump does this. You always get great content. Let me play this for you.
Weaponizing with the arrest of a congresswoman, Democratic congresswoman.
Oh, give me a break. Did you see her? She was out of control.
Did you address
those days are over. The days of woke. No, I didn't. The days of woke are over. That woman, I have no idea who she is. That woman was out of control. She was shoving federal agents. She was out of control. The days of that crap are over in this country. We're going to have law and order.
Mr. President, thank you very much. You campaigned on lowering the price of groceries. How do you justify cutting food assistance in this bill?
All right. So they were talking about moving on to the big, beautiful bill stuff, but absolutely fantastic comment. And he's right on this. And I like what Trump is doing is that I think he's trying to bring some of the aggression that is in where he can get away with it, where he's righteous, not just get away with it, but where he's righteous. And he is righteous here is that she is on video assaulting officers. Let's make an example out of her. That's exactly what should be done. They tried to put him in jail. They put a lot of his friends in jail. They tried to disbar his lawyers and or at least put them in some sort of purgatory where they can't make money or they can't work, trying to ruin lives of people who disagreed with him, disagreed with the establishment left politically. And you've got a woman on camera assaulting people. Go after her big league, throw the book at her, and she should absolutely go to jail. By the way, we got the Trump administration is going to pay $5 million to settle the Ashley Babbitt wrongful death suit. The only person who was shot dead at January the 6th, a Trump supporter who got shot in the back. Obviously, wild overreaction from law enforcement there. And U.S. Capitol Police Lieutenant Michael Byrd was the one who shot Babbitt, and when she was trying to climb through a broken window into the House Speaker's lobby. She shouldn't have done that. I don't recommend you guys do that. If you're feeling jacked up politically, try to direct those energies in different ways, but obviously didn't deserve to get shot in the back and died. And good for Trump for trying to at least partially right the wrongs there. This is the public, I think, receives very well Trump trying to put his money where his mouth is, promises made, promises kept, and trying to have some real balls politically. It works out very, very well for him. And I think that it just makes people like him and feel confident in him. And I think, ironically, when he makes mistakes, him being emphatic, him being a leader will bring people along to his side. We just got a poll that John Nolte's written up for us at Breitbart News from Insider Advantage that Trump's approvals has surged to 55%, which is extremely high in a divided nation. And there's other polls showing Trump trending upward as well. And I think a lot of it is the leadership that he's showing right now. And I think that puts him in a really great spot. I'm tempted to play this clip, and I will play it. This is from the same press gaggle from a reporter. He doesn't like this question, and let me show you how he deals with this question.
Andy Harris said that you didn't adequately convince enough people to vote for the bill, the House Freedom Caucus.
You mean after this speech?
After this speech, that's what
I think so. Well, why don't we see how the vote is? I think it was a great talk. It wasn't a speech. We talked about things. Who do you work for?
Notice.
Who?
Notice.
I don't even know what the hell that is. Get yourself a real job. Let me tell you.
So I don't even remember the question, but he said that, who do you work for? Who do you work for? And the guy says, Notice. And I don't know what Notice is. And Trump says, I had never even heard of it. Get yourself a real job. That is so beautiful and delish. And I will tell you a story. The last time I was in D.C., I've only made one D.C. trip to see the president, which was the only trip I've made thus far during the first, 120 days, whatever it's been. And I was at an event, and a reporter from Notice came up and talked to me. And I asked him where he worked, and he said Notice. And he said it with such emphasis, such confidence, that it made me think, oh, wow, Notice. Like, what is Notice? I've never heard of Notice. And I was feeling like a total idiot. Like, I'm in the news business. Like, what is this? Like, I was supposed to know what Notice is? And then to hear Trump do exactly my take, but my response was, oh, yeah, okay. It wasn't what his response was, get a real job. And that is the best part about Trump. I've said this. This is a Charlie Hurt quote, Fox and Friends morning host, one of my close friends. Charlie said this first: Trump's first draft is better than most of our final drafts. The first thought that comes into his mind, how to articulate something, it's better than stuff that you could go in a writer's room and hash it out and work out a bunch of different versions of it. Trump's version that comes off the top of his head first is often so much better than anything we could come up with if we were writing it ourselves. And that's exactly right. I had the exact same spirits. I have no idea what Notice is. And Trump's like, get a real job. It's so good. And if you guys know what it is, feel free to email me and let me know. So, yeah, Trump's approval is high. Kamala seems to be fading. I'm looking at a poll. What is this from? A in a coefficient survey, I don't even know what that is, but the Mediaite, which is a lame website that tracks cable news and stuff, highlighted this, that AOC is now the face of the Democrat Party. 26% identify her with that. 26% say there's no leader of the party. 22% said other. Kamala Harris is in fourth. Jasmine Crockett's in third. Bernie Sanders is a close second, I guess. So I like that Jasmine Crockett's in third. So you got AOC and Crockett at the top ticket. It's the Misty. That is a call for us to do nonstop Crockett talk. The more Crockett, the better. I love myself some Crockett. And AOC is like a moderate compared to Crockett. So maybe Crockett's a stalking horse to legitimize AOC. That's possible. That's what it's all about. But it's the look. I'm willing to play with that. Is that she's got some charisma, but I just don't think she's got the eye of the tiger the way she used to. I don't think she's a unifying force. And that's fine. I think we're in great shape if that's the face of the party. I just don't think she appeals to enough people and has a realistic chance of building a nationwide coalition. So I dig it. I think she's a regional candidate, and they're led by a regional candidate. It's becoming a coastal regional elite party. That's what it's all about over there in the Democrat land right now. All right. Let's see. Do I have anything else that I want to share with all of you? Oh, yeah. Big Beautiful Bill. A lot of movement on the Big Beautiful Bill since yesterday. I've checked in with some of our top Capitol Hill reporters. A lot of the drama is Freedom Caucus and the versus the SALT grandstanders, as Trump is referring to them. Trump has told Republicans not to F with Medicaid, and he did not use the letter F. He used the full word. He made clear several times in a meeting with Republicans that he wants to target waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. He does want to do that, but he does not want to cut it other than for waste, fraud, and abuse. Also, there was a discussion. There's still a lot of debate going on with SALT, which a lot of people are perceiving as a gift to Democrats, which is true. I think it is. It does lower taxes significantly in blue states, and that will make Democrats look good. And it is John Carney and I get into the SALT stuff, so I won't dwell on it too much. But there's a lot of movement there, and he accuses Thomas Massie of grandstanding, which is a common thing. But there's no big resolutions that have taken place, but a lot of negotiating happening between Trump and others right now. So the trying to leave Medicaid alone as much as they can, other than waste, fraud, and abuse, and the people holding out for no one's going to be happy on SALT, it seems like, when this thing gets done. So we'll get the specifics as time goes on, but that's where the discussion is right now. And Carney's got more, which is a pretty good segue to get into our interview with the one and only economic and finance editor for Breitbart News, John Carney. You're starting to feel those aches and pains. You know the ones, everyday stiffness. Waking up in the morning, coming home from work, maybe you're coming off the golf course, playing with your kids and grandkids. Well, you're not alone. As we get older, we're at an increased risk for bone loss, joint pain, and injuries that can slow us down and take us out of the game completely. No thanks. But here's some good news. You don't have to accept pain and weak bones as just part of getting older. The Juvent Micro Impact Platform is FDA registered and clinically backed to help keep you strong and mobile. In just minutes a day, Juvent delivers targeted micro impacts that support healthy bone structure and joint comfort all day long with no pills and no downtime. Thousands are finding relief every day with this technology, and now it's your turn. Fewer aches, better mobility, and incredible recovery so that you have more freedom to do the things that you love. There's honestly zero risk. Try Juvent for 6 weeks, and if you don't feel the difference, just ask for your money back. Get $300 off now at checkout with promo code Marlow. Take control of your mobility. Stay independent. Don't let pain call the shots. Go to juvent.com/Marlow. That's JUVENT.com/Marlow. Use the code Marlow at checkout, and you get an exclusive $300 off. Take the steps today that could change your life. All right, it's happened again. There was so much economic news that instead of calling Carney, getting Carney's take, and filtering it back to you, I've decided to bring him in once again. John Carney is here, our economic and finance editor at Breitbart News and the writer of the Breitbart Business Digest, when I'm not doing it, which is about 98% 8% of the time. John, let's first of all, you were in DC yesterday doing something kind of interesting, which was you're talking to executives of Bank of America and kind of explaining where we're at, those of us who have all the power right now. Tell us what you did.
Yeah, so I think I can talk about what I discussed. I can't talk about what the rest of the room discussed because it's subject to the rules of confidentiality.
Sure.
But they're very interested in not just Bank of America. It was some CFOs from banks all around the country and executives who really want to know what's going on, with the MAGA economy. They can figure out what the legacy media thinks about the economy. They can figure out what the mainstream economists are telling them. But frankly, they don't watch enough of our podcasts, Alex, to know that what we're thinking. They, hopefully after yesterday, they are all now subscribed to the Breitbart Business Digest.
Yeah, good.
Because I pitched it pretty hard. But
this was something I have to say that as I was starting to get some juice in when I was doing well and Breitbart was doing well, and I was in my late 20s and I was working 24/7, and I was always stunned at how many smart and powerful people were not tuned in to everything. And I probably gave me a lot of confidence because I realized that I guess I had an outsized appetite for news and information, and I rode that pretty far, thank God. But it is interesting to see how uninformed even some of the smartest, richest people in the world can be.
Yeah, one of the things that is pretty incredible is that we know what the other side thinks all the time. We study up on it. I mean, we spend countless hours dissecting their arguments and finding flaws. They don't really know what we think about things, not just the other side, but people who are, really in the business of just trying to figure out what's going on with the economy. The bankers, they just want to know what to expect. What is the plan with tariffs, for instance?
Yes.
And they, and the thing I pointed out is, if the media that you're reading keeps telling you that Trump does crazy things, reverses himself, gets, pushed back, then you're reading the wrong things.
Yes,
because
that's right.
We've been saying all along that this makes sense. Here's what's going to happen. There will propose tariffs. Those tariff levels are meant to be negotiated down, if not almost negotiated away altogether. So Trump isn't reversing himself when he says, I'm going to put a 40% tariff on whatever country, and then later says, no, actually, I'm bringing that down to 20%. That's the art of the deal. I mean, the guy wrote a book about it. How did you not think that was what's going to happen? But they don't, because frankly, the way it gets reported in a lot of the legacy media is really unhelpful. There's not a lot of places you can go to find out about this. You can listen to, our podcast, you can read Breitbart, and you can read the Breitbart Business Digest, but there's not a lot of other places.
It is shocking to me that I don't know what it is, but you're totally right about this. It's just people just have total lack of curiosity, and they would like to prefer that we're all very irrational, but we're actually highly rational, and that's
right.
One of the things that might intimidate them is that we're actually probably reading more than they are, and we're probably more rational. And this is one thing that I think stuns people about Trump is that he's mostly consistent. He's actually more consistent than the vast majority of politicians. Case in point, the conversation this week about Joe Biden, about how Joe Biden, who's a guy who claimed he had cancer one time and then said he was taking cognitive tests, and then he said he wasn't taking cognitive tests, and then he yelled at people for asking if he was taking cognitive tests, and then now it's like, wow, we had no idea it was a mental decline. Really? Oh, that's where you been? Anyway, I don't mean to digress into that.
It's important. Yeah. Biden was all over the place, and we were told not to believe what we could see with our own eyes. And it's sort of the same thing with Trump. Trump's doing what he said he would do. I just saw today a very prominent economist named Olivier Blanchard had said that, we're going to have this massive, economic problem around the globe, all due to one man. That was his phrase, one man. And I said, well, wait a minute, due to one man, we had an election in this country. It wasn't one man deciding we were going to have tariffs. I've never seen a issue come closer to almost a national referendum on tariffs. Maybe immigration would be the one other thing.
Yes.
But it got talked about all the time. Kamala Harris called it a national sales tax every day. So the idea that like people, we didn't know we were going to get tariffs, that it's one man's doing. The American people voted for the guy who said that tariff is the most beautiful word in the dictionary, that it's his favorite word. They voted for the guy whose opponent said he wants to impose a national sales tax. It's not like this came as a surprise. Yeah, and like I said, the only other one I can think of that was as well debated was immigration. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a really sleeper point that I'm going to make, that I've made this point, but I don't think I made it emphatically enough of how important it was for Trump to win the popular vote and to win every swing state.
Yeah.
And to improve upon his total from last time, from 2020, because it makes this stuff, they do want to cast it as it's just one guy and this is not democratic, but it's very democratic. They're the ones who are not democratic. They're the ones who rigged their primary twice and then got their butts kicked. So we want this stuff. We want to see how it goes and we want to try it. So what was people's reaction in the room to your discussion and the fact that you're, a buttoned up, sharp guy who's read everything?
Well, so I think one of the things they wanted to see was, all right, and again, I don't want to discuss too much what they said.
Sure.
I think I would be violating, I was very gracious of Bank of America to invite me, and I think it actually speaks very well of them that they
and by the way, they're not the only, Fortune 100 or even Fortune, I don't know, what are they, 20? 30?
Yeah, I mean,
they're not the only company that's reaching out. A lot of companies are reaching out, and they're genuinely curious now. Like they want to know. So this is not uncommon, at least from my experience for the last few months, Trump administration. A lot of people, I went to this meeting with energy executives at the White House, and they were, some of them were, I think, spooked that I was there, but I think some of them were very interested to see and genuinely, like not a put on.
Yeah, I'll just say on a personal level, I just actually got back from a reunion of my law school class at Penn Law. And, it's a Ivy League law school, very liberal group. I was amazed at how many of my classmates, one, have moved pretty far to the right. They were not as, they weren't anti-Trump. They were super curious to talk to me about Trump economics, about Trump policy in general, about why I supported Trump, about why I thought other people did. It was and I do think this has been a big shift. In the first Trump term, there was a lot of people who looked at it like a fluke. Like this isn't going to, oh, well, he got elected, but he didn't get the popular vote. It'll never happen again. I think, as you said, not only winning the second time around, but winning on policy. Right? Like he didn't just win based on, so like last time they said it was like anger or whatever. He ran on policy. He won on policy and he won decisively. I think that makes a big difference in the way he's being perceived and the way this administration is being perceived. And as I pointed out to the Bank of America crowd, we have this is a lot of the things that we're seeing now, the new policies, particularly the tariffs, are not going away. They are, your mental model should be that we will have a baseline tariff, probably the 10% tariff. I don't know if that's exactly where it will end up forever. Joe Biden didn't take back the China tariffs. A lot of people thought he would. Remember when Trump put those on the first time, people were like, oh no, it's the end of the world. But we had the China tariffs stay. The new tariffs that are coming in, not all of them will stay. A lot of them, as I said, are meant to be negotiated down, but there will be some level of tariff that will be partly protective of U.S. markets and partly also a revenue generator. The tariff, as they like to remind us all the time, is a tax. It is generating billions of dollars for the U.S. government, and it is doing so without the kind of economic disruption people were, claimed would happen. And so I think what we're going to see is that the mental model of like, that's going to go away someday is wrong. We're probably going to have at least a lot of these tariffs forever, for the rest of our lives. This is a new regime for the global economic order. The way I put it is I said, look, we did Bretton Woods 2 generations ago, where basically we said, all right, we need to rethink the way the post-World War II economic order is going to work. We're doing that again. This is, how does the world work from now on? That's why you have to pay attention to it, because it's not just, it's Donald Trump driving it, but it's going to outlast Donald Trump's presidency.
Yeah, great points, and also very noteworthy. I had shared a similar experience earlier in the week on the show, John, about how I went to a high school reunion over the weekend in a very liberal, ritzy part of Beverly Hills, and I did feel like I was much better received than I think I would have been a year ago. I think Trump winning would have changed things. And I think people are understanding that this is not a joke. This is the real deal. So glad to have you there.
Crazy Marlow and Carney coming up with these ideas. People are like, oh wait, there's a whole half of the country that agrees with these guys.
They're into it, right? And instead of anger, it's more like curiosity of what's working. Yeah. And also, there was a lot of self-deprecation I got from the libs of the group that were getting it, that they're completely rudderless right now. And sometimes you've got to eventually throw your hands up and say, we're just getting beat right now. We're just losing the game. We're down 6 shots here on the back 9. It's like, it's not just cheating like that's happening here. So it's.
Well, I would say that probably for your audience, a good model is think about what happened to the Republicans after 2012. The Republicans thought they should win in 2012. They had Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan. They thought, like, this is it. We're gonna do really well. And they got beat, and they had to rethink what their entire approach to voters should be. What's the pitch that can win? And I mean, frankly, you and Andrew Breitbart was instrumental in rethinking. The Democrats aren't even at that stage yet. They don't have that thinking going on, but they are at the stage of, all right, what we were selling to the American people isn't what people are in the mood to buy. What should we do? Mm-hmm. They haven't quite hit on anything yet. They don't have a new program. But they do know that, like, they gave it their best shot and came up empty.
Yep. Right on. John, I want to get into a couple specifics with you right now. The first one I want to talk about is super germane to your beat, which is that all these credit ratings are going down for America. I want to get a sense of what you think from these. Moody's cutting our deposit rating, or for major banks, other rating organizations are suggesting that America is not quite the place to do business as it once was. Which ones are you looking at that you think matter? Which ones don't matter? And what if this is politicized?
Yeah, I don't think any of it matters. I think it mattered back when S&P did this during the Obama administration the first time. It mattered for like one kind of technical reason, and two, a sort of, shock and awe first time around reason. So the technical reason was back then there were a lot of investment funds, mutual funds, things that you could, put your retirement into, that said things like, we will only buy AAA rated credit into this fund. And when the U.S. got downgraded, there was a question of, can we still buy U.S. treasuries into this fund? And this was a big sort of moment of power, because it said to investors, are you going to allow the rating companies to decide who's the safe asset, or are you going to judge for yourself who's the safe asset? They all said, no, never mind. We can still buy U.S. treasuries. It's still the safest asset on the planet. And so that's a technical reason. Those things that say you can only buy AAA now say you can buy AAA or the U.S. Treasury debt. That so the rating doesn't have the technical impact it did several years ago. The non-technical reason it doesn't matter is it didn't tell us anything new. It's not like people were like, oh, wow, the U.S. has a lot of debt. I'm glad Moody's brought that to my attention. I was I had no idea that we were running big budget deficits. Of course, everybody knows that, right? So this is not like a surprise that is going to cause anybody to rethink the United States. The one other thing is they'll say is, in a sense, when you downgrade the U.S. government, you are really downgrading the entire world. And the reason why I say that is, we issue debt in U.S. dollars. We have, as the United States government, we have unlimited dollars. We don't have to draw that from anywhere. If we can't find it in the market, we can just print them. We can never run out of dollars to pay our bills. That could cause inflation. I'm not saying that's like the easy answer, but what I am saying is that there's very few other entities in the world that have that power. Switzerland does. The UK does. Most of Europe does not. They have the euro, and so Germany borrows in euros, but it does not control how many euros exist. It could run out of euros to pay its debt. I mean, that's what that whole crisis we had when we had the sovereign debt crisis was, the risk that Greece in particular, but Spain, Italy, could run out of the money that they need to keep financing their debt. We can't. So in a sense, we are still, no matter what, the safest investment in the whole world. What Moody's might be saying, and one like rational way of interpreting it is, well, maybe the world isn't quite as safe as it used to be. And that's a plausible argument, right? That maybe we downgrade the US because we're saying, yeah, it's a little bit riskier than it used to be. You asked about the politics of it. I think it's really creepy they did this right as we're going into the tax season. That seems to me like kind of a political interference. They should have stayed out of this. Either done it 6 months ago, 3 months ago, or waited. Doing it now in anticipation of, well, I mean, for one thing, it's like they shot their ammo. What are they going to do? Downgrade us again if they don't like the tax bill? They already did it. They've had us on negative watch for a long time. Negative watch just means like, we're probably going to downgrade you. So they did. They got around. They downgraded us. But it had already been done by Fitch. It had already been done by S&P. It's not a surprise. It has no technical impact, and it doesn't introduce any new information into the market, which is one reason you saw basically no impact, right? Like stocks didn't, the way people have talked about this, you would expect stocks to crash because, oh no, the U.S. got downgraded. It didn't happen.
Yeah, fascinating. Let's move on to the big beautiful bill. I'm concerned. I really like it, and I think most of it's very good. And I think that we're sort of resigned to it because this is what Trump had wanted from the transition. That he wanted a big beautiful bill, whereas he calls it one big beautiful bill, which I think he botches the marketing on that, because I think we're hijacking BBB, John. We're taking back Build Back Better. We're doing it with the BBB. We got to do it. Drop the one. But overall, I am a little bit concerned about the debt and the deficit. I'm a student of John Carney as well as a colleague, so I know that we're not debt or deficit hawks here at Breitbart News on the economic and finance side. That said, there's plenty of reason to feel like, we're talking about, 1.5 trillion a year in annual interest. It's getting up there. So there's got to be a number where we're not happy about it. So give me your take on the bill.
So I actually don't think the bill will make the debt problem worse. If you look at the issue with debt, it's not really the total amount of debt that exists. It's really what rate you're paying on it. That's actually what creates a lot of pressure. The fact that because we got Biden inflation, that the Fed had to jack interest rates up a lot means that's actually just, even if we weren't spending any more money, our interest costs go up. So that's what's causing that, and that actually does cause a little bit of a long-term problem when you have to pay high interest rates on the debt. So the question is, what drives that? Will tax cuts, even if they do lower revenue, so will more debt mean higher interest rates? That's the model that the CBO uses. It's a model that the Penn-Wharton budget model uses, and it's frankly wrong. If you look at what happened over the last 40 years, the amount of debt we issue and our deficits has skyrocketed, but the interest rates did not. They went up very recently because the Fed raised them to deal with inflation, but there's not some sort of technical automatic thing that says, well, if you have higher deficits, then your interest rates go up. That's what their models do. It's what the CBO does, and it's wrong. It's why they get the economy wrong. They not only say that it drives up interest rates, they say that increase in interest rates then crowds out private investment. So you get less investment in the economy, less productivity, less growth. So they have this model where this tax cut is very destructive. And I think they're very wrong about that. It doesn't happen that way. And so
let's just start with the math, though. And it's always the guesses vary wildly. How much does the bill cost, quote unquote? Again, this is sort of estimates at this point. And how much does it cut? And I know a lot of the cuts don't kick in for years. So let's start with that fundamental.
Right. So what I would say is that's the problem with every budget. Everything the government does is they always backload the savings onto the end of it. And the problem with that is, frankly, we often never get around to the end of it. Right. So they say, okay, this is going to add over a 10-year window, $3 billion or $3 trillion to the debt. I don't trust any of those 10-year windows. In fact, I try not to pay attention to them because, one, Congress, we get a new Congress every 2 years. They can change direction at any time. Two, a lot of the savings that are supposedly built in there are wrong. Three, the model they use, the one I was just discussing, is wrong in itself. So what I would tell everybody is actually don't do the math. And I know that's weird because I do it all the time. But don't do it. It doesn't help you figure out what's going to happen. What you really should do is say, do I think businesses in the U.S. are taxed too little or too much? Do I think cutting taxes would actually encourage more investment or discourage it? I think it encourages it. I think that businesses are not taxed too much in the U.S. So I would just focus on that. And if we have programs we need to cut, and I believe we do, we should do that, but not look at it at the same time as doing the tax bill. Don't worry about the pay for, adopt the right policy. I think this is what Donald Trump meant when he said, he told Congress apparently today, according to some reports, don't mess around with Medicaid in this bill. We can, if we need to change whatever it is, we can do that, but don't do it in this bill. This bill should be about getting our tax rates right. This bill should be about living up to the promises Donald Trump made that got him elected. So we need to make sure that we preserve all the tax cuts from that.
I think you've just found the words around what I'm thinking about this is let's adopt the right policies and then we'll let the chips fall where they may. But I do feel that we're going to short term hear Democrat hand-wringing about debts. And I don't know if it bothers me that much, but I like to put myself in a position where people can't dunk on me in 6 months when it's a big problem. So it's a concern.
So here's my reassurance. One, all of those assessments, the CBO, everybody else, is not calculated in the extra revenue that we're getting from tariffs. Tariffs are generating extra revenue for the U.S. government. So that gives us some cushion. Number two, the real way to get out from under the debt, if you're worried about the debt, is to do everything you can to grow the economy faster. You can, if I invite people to look at their own lives, right? The way you got out, the way you became richer as you got older in your life, right? Why aren't you as poor today as you were when you were a student or when you were, first started out in life? Because you earned more money, right? That is how wealth gets built. That is how the United States as a collective is going to get out of any sort of debt problem. We are going to grow our economy. So that is 100% what we should be thinking about, growing our ability to have and produce more goods and services. That's it. The money stuff is kind of a distraction. The numbers of what percentage of GDP, all a distraction. What really matters is the real world. Are we making stuff and are we performing services so that we have enough of it in the future? That's it.
All right, John, but for the sake of time, I want to do rapid fire. I got a bunch of stuff, but I wanted to be a little tight on this. First of all, let's do a tariff update. Tariffs from China, are they on? Are they off? What level are they? Are they going to start raising prices for consumers right now?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to raise prices for consumers, in part because nobody knows where the tariffs are going to end up. A lot of businesses are willing, if they see the negotiations happening, to eat the tariffs for now and then hope the tariffs come down. And so the squeeze on their margins isn't much. Plus, if we make sure we get the tax cuts in place, that actually provides cushion for businesses. They're not getting the enormous tax hike they thought.
Got it. Okay. The next one I want to bring up, Walmart they say they're going to raise prices. Walmart, I do not regard Walmart highly. I kind of hate Walmart, to be honest with you, because I'm not over the fact that they would move into towns. They would undercut the market. They would charge prices they would actually take a loss just to put out mom and pop businesses out of work. I find that to be reprehensible and sort of unforgivable. So I've never forgiven them for that. But they are the biggest retailer in the world, or at least in America. So they deserve a certain level of respect despite their ruthlessness. So what is your take on this comment, their strategy here? Because, it's basically like a country. Like when Walmart says this, you shouldn't look at it like a business. This is like a country making a move against Trump.
Well, so what I would say is that Walmart is going to discover that they have less pricing power than they believe. They will be able to. I do think that some prices go up because of tariffs. There are some things where there won't be a lot of alternatives. You can't get it from a lower tariff country. So what do? You probably raise the prices on that. But because people don't necessarily have more spending power, it means that you have to lower prices on other things. So what I imagine will happen here is Walmart will say, okay, there are some items where we have a higher margin. We will lower that margin on that to give people more spending power to buy the things that we have to raise the price on. Like you said, Walmart's almost its own country. Its customers don't walk into Walmart with more money to spend just because tariffs are there. So if Walmart raises the price on one thing, it almost has to cut the price on something else because its customers are already almost, not quite, but almost spending as much as they possibly can in Walmart. Amazon has the same problem. Target has it. All the giant retailers have that same problem.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so next thing, Tesla, they're announcing they're going to have robo-taxis. Musk does this thing where he does announce stuff and then he makes it true. I know this. I worked for Bannon. Bannon loved to do this stuff. And then Trump does this stuff as well. You announce things and then all of a sudden they have a way of becoming true. But he says robo-taxis are coming to Austin. I'm frankly shocked at how Tesla fell behind the Waymo Jaguar collab that's going on because they've taken over LA. They've taken over Phoenix as of a year ago. I'm pretty surprised that Tesla is losing this game. I don't underestimate Musk, though, at this point, so maybe Musk will get him back on track. But I had always assumed that he was on track to be the leader in this regard. What's your take?
I think that he is, obviously a very competent person and thinks that, and he does seem to have that Bannon-Trump magical ability of willing things to happen in the world. So I do think that we probably will see robo-taxis. One big problem with robo-taxis is the model is kind of broken. The way, say, an Uber works is you have a guy, he owns his own car. Yeah. And that's where the capital comes from. So you could have a very capital-light company like Uber.
And Uber still loses money.
Right. A capital light company where they're not spending money on the cars because they're getting their drivers to spend that money. And the question is, who buys the cars? The robots can't buy their own cars. So who's buying the cars? You need a big supplier of capital. I think that's going to end up being a bigger constraint on robo-taxis than people think.
Yeah, that's a good take in the sense that it must be very expensive, and that could be the issue here. So
and
why is
how
Waymo
fast? I just want to add one more thing.
Sure.
How fast cars that are used as taxis get run down? They're not used the way like you or I use our car, which is like, go to the store, go to work, drive the kids to sports or school.
Hey man, I'm in LA. You can't speak for me. My car is completely, it's always on the move. But you're making this point, which is smart, which is that they run through those things. at 10 times the rate of a normal car.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. And then the other one I wanted to mention to you. We're back on the, I did this out of order, but we're back on the big, beautiful bill. I'm going to look at my notes. I apologize. Look, it's the magic of podcasting. The SALT the SALT, the state and local tax deduction, where it feels like everyone's consented to it going up a little bit. It's at $10K right now. I think Trump wants it to push it up really high. What's your take on this? A lot of people in the quote unquote SALT caucus will not back a bill that raises this too much. What's your take?
Yeah, so I'll just say I'm speaking against my own interest. I live and work in very high tax areas, New York, Connecticut. I would probably benefit from a higher SALT deduction, but I think this is corrupt and terrible. And I'm really sad that to see the Republicans, lawmakers from these areas pushing for it. I know why they're doing it. It's just total self-interest, but it is a subsidy to these big spending states, their governments. It actually politically hurts governance in these states because it takes away one of our incentives to not have big spending in New York, right? Because if you didn't get that deduction, you might put pressure on your state government to spend less and tax you less. With the deduction, you're like, oh, it's okay. I either pay the federal government or I pay the state government. I come out fine either way. So I think there's a politically corrupting thing that goes on with these state and local tax breaks. I thought it was good that they capped it. I would have capped it even lower. But, politics is the art of the possible, and we only have so many Republican votes.
I'm devil's advocating it, even though I think I agree with you. But I'm devil's advocating it with two retorts. First of all, I live in a swing district in a blue state that was narrowly lost to Republicans. It would have been a great seat to have right now. We had a terrific Congressman, Mike Garcia, for the last couple of terms, and then now we have a lame person. I don't even remember who it is, and that's just Democrat generic. Indistinguishable from any other. And I live in a ridiculously high tax area where it is a lot of young families, and we could use every penny we can get. But though technically on paper we make a lot of money, but it all goes in this neck of the woods, and it could make a difference for some people. And it's I'm with you. But that's is that corrupt or is that smart politics? What happens when a culture starts trading truth for comfort? Live Not by Lies is a bold new docuseries by Angel Studios. It uncovers how soft totalitarianism is quietly taking root in the West through censorship, digital surveillance, and the erosion of free thought. Inspired by Rod Dreher's best-selling book, the series features firsthand accounts from survivors of communism who recognize the warning signs because they lived through them themselves. The stories are raw, deeply moving, and they're drawing parallels between yesterday's totalitarian regimes and today's cultural climate. This isn't just about history. This is about right now and what we risk if we stay silent. Live Not by Lies is a challenge to every viewer to reject comfort at the expense of conscience and to stand firm in faith, family, and freedom. Streaming now on Angel Guild, join today by visiting angel.com/Marlow. That's angel.com/Marlow.
So I think it's, maybe smart politics is corrupt. That is the way I'd put it. That, yeah, it's a little corrupt. I think that one of the things that really bothered me about the way this gets talked about is the SALT cap didn't actually raise very many people's taxes at all. In fact, almost everybody got a tax cut from Donald Trump. Even if you lost a huge part of your SALT deduction, you were still getting a tax cut. What they're saying is we want even more of a tax cut. Look, I get it. I want more of a tax cut too. I guess the one thing that does bug me is some of these people are also kind of deficit hawks. So they are arguing for a big tax break for their constituents and yet still criticizing, whether it's the Trump administration, the federal government, whatever, for running too big of a budget deficit. But that SALT tax, unlike cutting taxes on businesses or cutting the marginal rate on people, the SALT tax is not pro-growth. It doesn't really add a lot to the economy. I would rather do a bigger child tax credit, for instance. I'd rather, I think there are better things we can do.
That.
Yeah. So, but look, this is what we got. And I'm not going to, if you're going to vote for the big, beautiful bill and this is, the price of extracting it, that's politics, baby. That's the way we got to do it.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like if they raise the SALT tax, for me, it does sound corrupt. But if they raise, for example, the deduction for my childcare that I need so that my wife can treat the community cancer patients and I can run an incredible news company, I can only write off the taxes I pay on I don't get to write off the employee that is employed full time. With for me, like it's probably roughly the same benefit to me, and one of them seems to make perfect sense on paper, and one of them does seem like a buying votes, which is interesting how these things work out. All right, but I can't resist though. But the no tax on tip deal. Okay, when I worked at a restaurant in college, that you would get, minimum wage is California is probably pretty high for like $7.50 an hour at the time, $8 an hour. But you can make $200-300 the football Saturday. You make $200-300 in cash tips in a 5-hour shift, and it's no one was declaring any of it. It's I would declare some of it because I was. I thought I was conservative Republican, but you're not. No one was declaring any of that. Why are we doing no taxes on that if we won't raise the SALT deduction though?
So that's one, because tipped workers tend to get the SALT deduction. People do tend to be wealthier. The tipped workers are much lower down on the scale, or they were.
Sure, but I'm saying the vast majority of their income comes from tips and a lot of these things. And I'm pro no tax on tips, so don't take me out of context, any haters and losers in the audience. But it is one of these things where it's clearly buying votes from this class of people.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I think one of the things that happened is there used to be almost call it like a gentleman's agreement with the U.S. government, where they knew a lot of people, tipped workers weren't reporting their tips properly. They knew that, but they didn't really go after them because they said, well, okay, look, it's a waiter. How much money do we think we could squeeze out of the waiter? The IRS kind of picked up a little bit more on that and did start to go after some of this. So that created an impetus for no tax on tips. I do think it's going to be hard to monitor for abuse. For instance, I'm about to write you a letter, Alex, saying, "Dear Alex, I now would like my salary to be $1 and everything else to just be a tip."
Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. I don't know how you prevent that from happening, frankly.
Oh, so genius. That is the genius strategy. All of you do this in the audience. Perfect way to round out the show today. All of you in the audience, you are under obligation to, Misty, let me cook here. You're under obligation right now to email your employer and request to reduce your salary to the minimum wage and take the rest in tips. I think that's it. You got to do it. Why not?
We need a tip bucket on the podcast. So
I'm pro cutting taxes anyway, and we're starting it. We got to start a tip jar now. I'm pro cutting taxes anyway, so let's cut it. But this is certainly there is an element of it which doesn't quite work out on paper. But hey, I'm all for it. Let's cut the taxes. Let's cut them. John Carney, you're amazing. @ Carney on Twitter, Carney. Breitbart News, Breitbart Business Digest, et cetera, et cetera. And thanks, Misty. Thanks to all of you in the audience. And we will talk to you tomorrow.